All right. It's time to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker is Reverend David Shaw, and he's been in communication with the Spirit Guide since he was 3 years old and when his guardian angel saved his life for the first time. When he was in his teens, Spirit told Reverend David that he would become a healer, and when he was getting his first spiritual healing certificate in his 30s, Spirit said he would become a minister. Reverend David completed that prophecy by being ordained here at the Center of Enlightenment in October of 2017. He was also certified as a Reiki Master in 1999 and a medium as 2016. Reverend David has been attending the Center of Enlightenment since May of 2015, and he currently serves on our board as the president, and he was recently promoted to assistant minister. So he's assistant to the senior minister, Reverend Carol Willis. And he's a very valuable aspect of the church. A lot of the stuff that happens behind the scene, Reverend David has his hands in, and he's, as board president, it's not an easy job because you have to touch many aspects of the church. So help me welcome Reverend David Shaw to the platform, and his sermon today is, What is a Church?
Thank you, Reverend Keith. He knows what it means to be the president because he did it for at least 6 years, maybe 8, 10. Before my time, I only knew a couple of those. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Reverend Lisa got back from a trip last night and was exhausted, so she asked me to step in. So I'm recycling a sermon from 3.5 years ago. But since most of you weren't here that day, Reverend Keith actually was. It was funny. I didn't even have to change the thank you on it. So that was fun. Today I'm going to give you some answers to the questions, what is a church and why do we need them? According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, there are 5 definitions for church. 1, a building for public and especially Christian worship. 2, the clergy or officialdom of a religious body. 3, a body or organization of religious believers. 4, a public divine worship. And 5, the clerical profession. So definitions 2, 3, and 5 all deal with the leadership of a religious organization or the people involved in it, which is not our topic for today. Definition 4, a public divine worship is something that could happen in a field, forest, on a beach. But if we held our worship services every Sunday morning in the out of doors, we'd freeze in the winter cold, get wet in the spring and fall rains, and sweat in the summer heat, which is another form of getting wet. Ick. I need a teenage girl up here. They say ick a lot better than I do. Not to be sexist or anything, just admiring their grit and determination to be annoying. Some of them. Some are wonderful. Joanne's granddaughter Zora is a peach. I think she's awesome. Moving on. So that we can more easily focus our energies and attention on our connection with Spirit, I propose that we do need a building. So the definition that I will concentrate on today is the first one, a building for public worship. So why do we need church buildings? As I just said, one reason is to protect us from the elements. A religious organization can meet in any type of building. A small wood-framed one like this one, a storefront in a strip mall like the Metropolitan Metaphysical Church used to have in Warren, that's a similar kind of religion, or the gigantic National Shrine of the Little Flower in Royal Oak at 12 Mile and Woodward. The size of the building and how it is constructed doesn't matter as much as what goes on inside. The Center of Enlightenment, an independent spiritualist church, has met in this building for more than 20 years. I'm not exactly sure of the occupancy because it's different than the date of ownership because of paperwork and stuff. I don't know. It's been at least since 2000, but I think it's 96. But
Or earlier.
yeah, or 94. I'm still not sure. Anyway, there's been weddings in this church, like Reverend Keith's, memorial services, parties, ordinations, and of course, worship services like this one. So another reason why you need a church building is to have large open spaces to hold a variety of events. And we like to use our basement, which is newly called the Leda Woods Fellowship Hall, for fellowship potlucks and other kinds of parties and events. For our large open spaces, we can thank the following people who provided money to purchase this building. And you can see their names on a plaque in the foyer. Frank and Nancy Volker, Tom and Elizabeth O'Rourke, Reverend Dr. Elaine Weisenand, Andy Tucker, Reverend Alicia Harris, Reverend Mike Comito and his wife Sharon, Reverend Kathleen Katona, Wanda and Raymond Hayden, Don and Marcia Hyatt, Ruth Herbert, and Reverend Ken Novichesky. And of that list, he's one of the founding ministers, and like half that list is founding members of the 14 or 17 or whatever it was that started this place back in the 80s. So let's give them a round of applause. They're in spirit, they can hear us. And Reverend Katona, it was hilarious. Reverend Hellenberg walked in, Reverend Katona floated in right behind her, and then Reverend Cosmo walked in right behind her, and they're all Kathleen's. And I said, oh, the Kathleen's are here. Thought it was hilarious. So moving on, to quote the American poet Carl Sandburg, I have often wondered what it is an old building can do to you when you happen to know a little about the things that went on long ago in that building. Well, we're not going to do long ago. We're only going to do the last 25 years or something. But, well, to me, long ago is like the Egyptians, you know. If it happened in my lifetime, it's not long ago. So, we don't have any young people here. My granddaughter, you know, would think that something that happened in 6 years ago would be long ago because she wasn't here. One of the things that has gone on in this building since the Center of Enlightenment took ownership is spirit communication. Imagine, every Sunday since the late 1990s, people have stood on this platform and shared messages from spirit. That's more than 1,000 Sundays. If you're up here and you can tune into spirit, you can feel the presence and the energy of the ministers who have served here for the past 3 decades. And sometimes people get verklempt just from that first exposure of opening up to all of that. Some of us, it takes a little bit to get tuned in and then you get it. Anyway, when I took the practical metaphysics course with Reverend Kathleen Katona a few years ago, it's like 7 years ago now, time flies. A former senior minister in spirit introduced herself to me during the meditation. Her name is Reverend Karen Woodmansey, and she wanted to help me understand the legacy of the Center of Enlightenment and connect to the historical energy that is our lineage. She was the senior minister in the mid-2000s. Then she got cancer and passed on. But thanks to spirituals and the proof that there is life after life, I can work with Reverend Karen and other previous ministers and church members when I ask Spirit to help set up protection around the church and bring in positive, loving, joyful, healing energies. Once Reverend Kathleen Katona had been on the other side for a few months. She passed in 2018, the spring of 2018. And when you go over, it takes a little while to get your bearings. They got to teach you how to be a spirit again because you've been in a body for a while. Since then, she's also provided energy and inspiration to the ministers, the board of directors, and the membership to further our mission as a church. Now, from the beginning, I've come to the church early for community meetings, classes, choir practices, and Spirit would suggest that I play music on the sanctuary stereo. And later I learned that the specific songs and artists being suggested were some of Reverend Karen's favorites. That first happened a couple years before I met her in that meditation, and I didn't have that confirmed until a couple years after that I'd gotten the suspicion that it was her. Reverend Monica Bishop, who used to be on staff here, I asked her one time, and she said, oh yeah, she listened to all those people. And those people that she listened to, she really likes late 60s and 70s singer-songwriters like Elton John, Carole King, and Cat Stevens. And the funniest thing to me was she likes Leon Russell more than I do, which I don't know. I haven't met anybody like that, so I've met somebody in spirit. So if you don't know who Leon Russell is, she encourages you to look him up on YouTube. One of his songs has been covered like 60 times by different people. Now, I mentioned that story because I want you to know that you can work with spirit without knowing their names. I worked with Reverend Karen Woodmansey for 2 years before I knew that it was her. But you need to check their energetic vibration because, well, with your heart and your connection to God, because you only want to get spirits of positivity and love. Now, another reason for those stories is that a church building hosts echoes of the energy of its past inhabitants. As a center of enlightenment, these walls have hosted dozens of ministers, hundreds of members, and thousands of congregants, even first-timers. Thanks for being here so I could use it as an example. Each person leaves behind them some pattern, some energy, some inspiration for the current congregation. And that is another reason why we need a church building, to focus the energies of the past for the betterment of the present and the future. My final reason for today why you need a church building is simple. This is God's house. May we who come here not only find out about God, but find God. May there be beauty in this place. But especially may it be a place where men and women become aware of the beauty in themselves. May this be a place of worship. May this be a place of instruction. May this be a place of singing. May this be a place of prayer. But for us who worship and take instruction and sing and pray, may this always be a place of inner stillness where we may listen and hear when God speaks. May whoever ministers here minister in love. May whoever teaches here teach truth. May whoever serves here serve pleasantly. May everyone come into this house in expectation and go with thanksgiving. And may anyone who comes needing help go feeling blessed. May this be such a house that Jesus Christ or any stranger, even one of the least, would feel in it that they were with friends. Amen. That's our blessing for a church. It's the last thing on side 2 of the prayer card, and it's one of my favorite readings anywhere, not just here. And speaking of readings and stuff from other people, I have some quotes that I want to share with you all. In The Color Purple, Alice Walker wrote, "She say, Seeley, tell the truth. Have you ever found God in church?" Seeley replied, "I never did. I just found a bunch of folks hoping for him to show up." In spiritualism, thankfully, we continually witness evidence of God's work in our healing and messages. Nicky Gumbel, an English Anglican priest and author, said, "Church is not an organization you join. It is a family where you belong, a home where you're loved, and a hospital where you find healing." And Spirit helps us do healings every Sunday. Henry Ward Beecher, an American Congregationalist clergyman, said, "The church is not a gallery for the exhibition of eminent Christians, but a school for the education of imperfect ones." And I really like that one because, in back in the Medici days of Italy, it was all about who gave the most to church and who was the fanciest dressers and all that stuff. And that's not my church. For those of you on Zoom, I will quote Dwight L. Moody, 19th century evangelist and preacher. The difference between listening to a radio sermon and going to church is almost like the difference between calling your girl on the phone and spending an evening with her. Now, you could be calling your guy on the phone and spending you with him, but you know the difference. It's good to have that connection, but it's better to have that connection. And finally, an anonymous quote says, people don't miss church because they live too far from the building. People miss church because they live too far from God. That's a little judgy to me, but I'm putting it out there. So thank you all for your time, and thank you for your attention.